Taming the Demon by Skiro. Chapter 35 to MVP. You could hear them out there. His mind was hazy with pain, making it hard to understand the announcers yelling, especially whenever Anazaki was trying to say something to him. Sena took over as quarterback. There was never any doubt about that. The blonde hated being benched like this. His place was out there with his team, with Sena. Anazaki told him that Hakushu scored. Sena may struggle a little in the beginning, but he'd get it together. Hiruma had dozed off for a little bit and woke up shortly after halftime. His head was much clearer now. Clear enough that he could see the worry on the fucking manager's face as she stared at the door leading back to the field. Sena was the quarterback. Against Gao and Maruko. Oh yeah, he was getting up now. Anazaki was not happy with the decision and told him so. Hiruma understood that she was only looking out for him, but that wasn't going to stop him from going. So he called on the bet they made all that time ago and asked her the one question he knew she answered incorrectly to ensure her obedience. It didn't make her any happier, but she honored her promise and taped his arm up tight enough that it wouldn't completely fall apart. With that done, he grabbed the ketchup out of the fucking fat ass's bag and decorated himself for a proper Hiruma Yoichi entrance. The team was a mix of ecstatic and horrified to see him back on the field, and he took great pains to ensure that nobody saw anything to indicate that he wasn't 100% fine. Musashi saw right through him. Sena did as well after a moment. Well, none of that mattered because there was only a 21-point difference. Irony. And everybody was still okay. After all, if Go had broken any other players, the Christmas Bowl dream goes up in flames. Hiruma tried to ignore the part of his mind that kept flashing back to his nightmares that featured Gao standing over broken red jerseyed bodies. Everything was fine though, because, as Jumonji pointed out while Hiruma was off taking a nap, Damon was busting its collective ass to hold itself together. For the most part, they were succeeding. Now it was time for Hiruma's big comeback play. Time for the funny quiz, eyelashes. What will Hiruma do during the next play? The answer? Absolutely nothing! Hiruma had returned to pull Damon out of a pinch. Therefore, Damon was going to completely ignore Hiruma and continue using Sena. Since Maruko was busy watching the blonde, he was in no position to stop the kid, and as such, Sena scored a touchdown. The gap shrunk to 15 points. Musashi shrunk it to 14, but only after Hiruma handed the job of setting the ball a kickoff to Sena. After that, Hiruma did everything he could to keep Maruko guessing as to the state of his arms. He took part in defense, he blitzed, he kept his insane grin permanently plastered to his face. His arms sent bolts of agony all throughout the rest of his body, but he refused to let up to slow down. He had to make sure Maruko didn't realize how much of a weak point he really was. Maruko, like a naming little slime ball, called his bluff with Hakushu's bunt kick. The ball flew pretty much right into Hiruma's arms, but there was no way he could catch it. The fucking monkey covered for him, but the cat was out of the bag. There was only one thing he could do now. Throw a long pass. He had maybe one pass left in him before his arm died completely, and it was the only way to keep Hakushu from allocating all of their defense to block Sena's runs. First, he had to rile the crowd up a bit. The look on the manager's face when he centered the sights. Priceless! Anazaki whispered to Suzuna, same fucking face. And the little cheerleader turned to the audience and screamed, long pass! The crowd picked it up almost immediately because if there was one thing Damon fans knew, it was that when something becomes impossible to do is when Damon does it. The majority of Hakushu were ready to call this as another bluff. After all, there was no way somebody could throw a long pass with a broken arm, right? Gao said wrong. It was aggravating, but Gao knew Hiruma Yoichi was the kind of monster who would throw a long pass with a busted arm. Since Gao said it, Kisaragi believed it and moved to continue marking Mata. Mata said, bring it. Taking the snap by itself nearly brought Hiruma to his knees. As it stood, the injury threw him off just enough to deviate the ball's intended path. Manta didn't care and moved to catch it anyway. The blonde was dimly aware that the monkey caught the ball, shook off Kisaragi, and achieved a first down, but he was more than a little preoccupied with keeping the grin on his face as his right arm finally went kaput, and the pain threatened to drag him under. He was brought back to himself when Sena, lining up for the next play, gently and subtly squeezed the finger of the blonde's left hand. Hiruma was grateful for the comfort, but more so for the kid taking the ball and scoring a touchdown. With Musashi's bonus kick, Damon was only one touchdown behind. Kisaragi got a little hysterical. Maruko seemed a little desperate. Knowing Maruko's philosophy about strength being absolute, Hiruma figured that the Hakushu quarterback would take their offense as an opportunity to run Hiruma over and make sure he wouldn't come back this time. That was fine. There was nothing wrong with that kind of simple strategy. Except that it can be used against you as much as for you. Sure enough, Maruko came racing towards Hiruma, ball in his arms, crazed look in his eyes. Hiruma welcomed him from behind the fucking fat ass. The blonde could see the realization dawn in Maruko's eyes when it hit him that this was a taste of his own medicine. This is what you made all your opponents deal with. There was a moment when it seemed like Maruko wouldn't be getting back up, and Himuro yelled for another stretcher to be brought out, but Gao told her to put it away. Maruko was stronger than that, and she knew it. And he seemed to be, for a moment. He stood up, and when he wavered, well, Hiruma was standing right there for him to lean against. The blonde was abruptly reminded of when he found Habashira after the Zogoto versus Kyoshin game. Except Maruko wasn't asking, "How are we different?" He was saying, "Please tell me we are the same." In the same situation, roles reversed, would Hiruma do everything Maruko had done? Would Hiruma sacrifice his morality, his reputation, other players for the ultimate victory? Of course he would! The two quarterbacks shuffled off to their respective benches. There was 5 minutes left in the game. The two teams were tied. In all the hubbub about Maruko, no one had noticed Sena grab the ball and score until Musashi needed to kick. And the real battle started now. Hakushu started it by getting a first down. They had returned to their original, highly effective strategy, the North-South game. If Garita had his hands full with Gao, then he wasn't smacking Maruko into the dirt. That could be fixed, and in the next play, it was. Unfortunately, when Karita went to blitz Maruko in the play after that, Gao all but said, "Excuse me, I'm over here," and reached out to flatten the fat ass completely. Hakushu scored a touchdown. With their bonus kick, the score was 42-35 for Hakushu, and there were only 2 minutes left. It was Damon's turn for offense, and they had a problem. Hiruma couldn't throw any more passes due to his arm, but Sena wasn't capable enough of control tower to properly combat Maruko. Which option was the lesser of two evils? Hiruma's injury or Sena's inexperience? Somebody asked Karita what he thought, and he said it didn't matter because he'd protect both quarterbacks. Both quarterbacks? Well, if they could compensate with shotgun, why the fuck not this? Hiruma could practically hear the snarl that would be in Agon's throat if he were watching. Damon was going to use the dragonfly. Traditionally, the dragonfly was used between two players that each other exceptionally well, like twins, for example. In fact, many would argue that Musashi might have been a better choice to match Hiruma in the dragonfly. Musashi would have laughed at them and said that not only were Hiruma and Sena anything but traditional, they knew each other better than anybody ever did, and maybe ever will. And so the play began. Hiruma couldn't take the snap without aggravating his injury, so of course Hiruma took the snap and back-passed it to Sena, left arm's good for something, when Hakushu began to swarm him. Sena grabbed the ball and ran a short way to lure out some of the blockers. One of those blockers happened to be Kisaragi, leaving Manta open to catch Sena's pass. The next play had Hiruma faking a handoff to Sena, who ran down the right side, leaving the left unguarded for Hiruma to earn a first down. The next play was when Hiruma realized something. He hadn't seen Demon at all this whole game. Sena was running with the ball like normal. Gao managed to get around Kurita to attack from the right, and Maruko came up to steal the ball from the left. The blonde knew that Demon would turn right to face Gao, where Sena might just hit the dirt where he was. Seeing the chibi's feet shift towards Gao, Hiruma waited to see his shoulders realign to become Demon shoulders. They weren't realigning. Sena took a brutal tackle that actually knocked him several feet to the side, even as he still held the ball. But it was still Sena! Hiruma got a little hung up on this revelation and half tuned out the ensuing conversation about that real Aishel 21. Still kind of hurts to think about him now that he's sort of gone. For a heart-stopping moment, the blonde wondered if Sena and Demon had faced together in the middle of the match and he'd missed it, or worse, it had happened when Hiruma had been taken out of the game and he didn't get to say goodbye. The injured player took a breath to calm himself. If Sena absorbed the other side of his personality, he'd have been acting differently to accommodate the emotions he now had access to. Hiruma wouldn't have missed that, so clearly they were still separate. He pulled himself together just in time to hear Sena ask to try something to defeat Maruko. There were 18 seconds left on the clock, and it was Damon's offense. After hearing the kid's idea, the blonde said, "Absolutely!" and tossed the dragonfly out the window. This was going to be a power match in more ways than one. Sena took the ball from Hiruma's handoff, ran up the left, swerved to run up the right, and... oh, there's Demon. It was Sena's idea to plow right through Maruko in a battle of strength, but it was Demon who did the plowing. He knocked the fucking eyelashes over and then used his body to propel himself forward just enough to put the ball in the end zone. Time had run out, so the last play would be Damon's try for point, win or lose. Like with Shinryuji, Damon was only 1 point behind, so a kick would send them into overtime while a 2-point conversion would win it for them. Unlike Shinryuji, there's no way overtime was even half an option, what with Hiruma's arm. Kurita wanted to battle Gao one last time on a truly even field, so Jumonji volunteered to take the snap. How far we've come from threats over Sena's well-being on the death march. The play was set up, Hiruma took the snap, went to hand it up. Wait a minute. Even if the blonde hadn't noticed the slightly incorrect placement of the kid's arms that would have resulted in disaster, the tears in his eyes would have alerted the quarterback. Of course. Between the tackle from Gao and colliding with Maruko, the poor kid's arms are probably completely numb. Hiruma pulled the ball away just in time for Damon's arms to tighten around himself and rush forward to use the double bat dive as a feint. Hiruma himself ran with the ball straight to where the fucking fat ass and Gao were duking it out. For a single, miserable heartbeat, Gao had the upper hand. Then Kurita took it back and knocked Gao clean into the dirt. Hiruma jumped through and landed in the end zone. The ref's hands went up and Damon got the 2-point conversion and they won. And they were going to the Christmas ball! They were also the champions of the Kanto tournaments. A great cheer had gone up from the audience and a fair number of devil bats had started to cry as teams lined up for the closing ceremonies. After giving the Kanto Cup to Damon, there were the individual awards to be given away, such as Most Valuable Lineman, which Kurita and Go tied for, and Most Valuable Back, which Manta took home. And the Kanto MVP award that was earned by Sena. Sena, who promptly dropped the trophy because he still can't feel his arms. Well, he did a good job today, so the blonde gave him a little verbal prompt to help recover himself. Of course, Demon popped out midway and took it to another level, becoming the first MVP ever to declare that his team will defeat Teikoku Gakuen. You said it, now you have to do it. And with everything said and done, Hiruma had a party to organize for Damon, family, and friends. But first, he had to find Demon and figure out where he'd been the whole damn game!